me. So my name is Todd McCree. As Josiah said, I'm the owner and operator of Great Escape Nursery and Great Escape Farms, both of which started in the fall of 2015. That's actually when I started the business piece of it itself. However, like Josiah said, my journey started a long, long time ago. And I will actually cover that in the introduction in just a moment. So a couple of things I want to level set here as we're starting. So this presentation is not designed to teach you how to really propagate plants. I have a couple slides, I'll talk about it briefly. It's more about training and where you can find training to both start a nursery as well as start a business and get a web page started and get a blog post started and a YouTube started. So it's more of a starting point to get stuff done. So with that, let's get into the agenda here. So this is what we're going to be covering today. First is the introduction, and the introduction, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about myself. And then I'm going to talk, this is where the majority of the plant talk is going to be. So I'm going to talk about what softwood cutting is, what a hardwood cutting is, and what rooted cutting is, and how I go about sending that. And then I'm going to talk about training. And this is all training that I have received, or good training that I would recommend on how to propagate plants, as well as how to start a business, how to start a web post, blog post, and stuff like that. Then I'm going to move into the business model, and in the business model, I'm going to go ahead and talk about my business model. It may seem a little complicated, but for a number of legal and accounting purposes, I have it set up in a unique way. And then I'm going to talk about some of the income streams and how I actually bring money into the company. From there, I'm going to go into marketing and how to spread the word. If me as a nursery, if I grow some plants and I all of a sudden decide I want to sell them and I just post online, hey, I have plants for sale. If I don't have a customer base or a subscriber base, nobody's going to buy the plants. So I need to start building a subscriber base up front. And that's what I've done with Great Escape Farms. And right now I'm approaching the 1,000 mark with subscribers, and I'll get into that in more detail. But you have to basically build a subscriber base, build a network of people, and that's going to be the marketing piece. And then winter activities, a number of people say, well, you're a nursery, you're only busy during the spring and summer. Well, actually, some of my busiest times are in the fall and in the winter. So I'm going to go over some of the different activities that I cover at the various different times of the year. And then we're going to hit the geek stuff. And the geek stuff is where we talk about building a web page, building a podcast, building a YouTube, how it all ties together, and ways to get things to work effectively together so you spend less time with the geek stuff and more time doing stuff that you want. And then almost anything has laws and regulations associated with it, and a nursery business has extra laws and regulations and licensing to go along with it. And then there's some legal aspects that you may need legal lawyer for, and there's also accounting and record keeping for tax purposes. So we'll get into some of that stuff as well. So that's what this is about for the next hour plus. So let's cover a little bit about this guy named Todd McCree, being me. So I actually had my first garden plot when I was 8 years old, and this picture was approximately around 8. So my father had a huge garden, and he carved out a little plot for me, and in that I grew corn, I grew black-eyed peas, I grew okra. Well, I don't like black-eyed peas, I don't like okra, but it grew good, and same with corn. I can't pull a stalk of corn down and just eat it. But it grew good, and I kind of liked it and had fun with it. Got into worm bins. My father actually, as I was propagating worms and growing there, actually they were propagating themselves, sold him worms. He bought some from me. And then I went into my middle school years and inherited a lawn mowing business from my brother, and I got into leaf raking and a lot of outdoor stuff. And then I got into my high school years, and I continued with the outdoor stuff in the neighborhood. And I also got a job at a plant and garden center, Joe's Plants and Garden Center, and sold some stuff there, did some landscaping work with them, planting trees and stuff. And that wasn't enough for me, so I also went out and I got a job at a TV repair shop. So I had 2 jobs. I was working both of them at the same time while in high school. I kept myself quite busy. And you'll see that theme as we go along here. Then after high school, I immediately went into the Air Force and spent 4 years in the Air Force. After I got out of the Air Force, I came back to Pasadena, Maryland, and not too many years after I got out, I started a family, had 3 lovely daughters. I joined a volunteer fire company, and I was also going to college at night, and I was working a full-time job. So again, I was keeping myself very, very busy, and that landed me a network engineering job. So I still have the network engineering job. That's what pays the bills for me right now. And it's what gives me a good cushion to play with permaculture and play with plants and nursery and farming and all the things that I really, really am passionate about. So that my network engineer or my geek job funds the passion for me. So when I started getting back into the plants and stuff like that, it was more landscaping. And this is a picture before I had heard about permaculture at all or unique edible plants. And it's very, very pretty, but I wouldn't have eaten anything in the yard at this point in time. What I didn't realize is I actually had a good bit of stuff that was edible. If you notice in the center here, there's yellow things. Well, those are daylilies, Stella d'Oro, and those are actually edible. I also have Rosa Sharon and hibiscus and a number of other things that are unique edible plants. So I did have a lot of edible landscaping. I just didn't know it. So one thing led to another, and as the kids got older and I ended up with a little more property, if you notice over where this red arrow is, that is their gym set. Well, as they got older, they weren't playing there anymore. So I turned that into my garden area. And my garden area ended up being, this is after I got into permaculture. You can't see it too much in the lower right-hand corner of the bottom picture here. I have a hugelkultur bed with a lot of perennials in it. And then I have 10 beds that are all square foot gardening beds. The one closest on the front left-hand corner is 4 foot wide by 16 foot long all the way, and it's kind of a pie shape. So in the back upper right, it's 4 foot wide, but it's only about 8 foot long back there. I have strawberries and a herb garden, and then I do have some annuals mixed in, so a lot of stuff here. What's not shown here, this was early on in my gardening. I do have blackberries and blueberries and a number of other things back there. So one thing led to another, and it just kept on going. But at the same time, I was listening to the Survival podcast and very much worried about what was going on with the economy and everything else between 2008 and 2012. So I ended up picking up this farm here as a bug out location. And it was actually intended as a bug out location, but it just so happened to have an orchard on it of 42 fruit trees, mature fruit trees, all apple, pear, plum, the normal type of fruit that you could find in any grocery store. Well, at the same time, listening to the Survival podcast, permaculture came to light, and I'll actually talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, but that kind of got me planting and doing some other things. So I started out with 42 fruit trees on this farm. I am now over 600 different edible plants on this farm, and most of them are unique edible. So I have not planted an apple tree or a pear tree or a plum or anything since I bought this place. I am going for unique edible stuff. So the type of stuff that if somebody walks on the property, most of them, they're going to look at it and not even know that it's edible. So I really, really have some neat stuff here. And that's part of what Great Escape Nursery is about, is growing unique edible plants and selling them online on the internet. But we'll cover more of that near the end. So what I do is I basically take cuttings, and we'll get into a little more detail on the cuttings here in just a couple minutes, and I root them. So both hardwood and softwood cuttings, and I put them in little pots and grow them for a season. And then when they're dormant, I pull them out and I ship them. And that's the nursery business. But it's actually turned into a good bit more of that, as you'll see as we move through the presentation here. So permaculture. I got into permaculture listening to the Survival podcast as a prepper, and it wasn't wasn't on purpose. It was by accident, and it was by Jack Spherico talking about it. And initially, I just blew it off. I was like, come on, let's talk about beans and Band-Aids and bullets. I'm not into all this. I'm into growing, but I'll do that on my own. Well, eventually, he piqued my interest in permaculture, and then the Perma Ethos thing came out, and they came up with the Perma Ethos PDC. So, and actually the Perma Ethos PDC was taught by Josiah Wallingford, who's hosting us today. Thank you, Josiah. Wonderful course. But they were only putting out the programming once a week, and I wanted more. So I was searching online. At this point, I was a sponge trying to pick up everything I could, and I ran across this online training called Open Permaculture School by Regenerative Leadership Institute. And I was actually taking both courses at the same time, and I realized that supposedly both of them teaching you how, or certifying you as in permaculture, they are quite different in their approach and how they do it. So Perma Ethos is very, very much by the book. They go chapter by chapter, they explain different concepts, they show you different things. Whereas the Open Permaculture School, and that was neat in itself. It was actually taught by Larry Korn, who was the person who transcribed One Straw Revolution from Masanobu Fukuoka. And again, a wonderful book there. But they did a lot of videos about going out and looking at permaculture properties. And it was very, very interesting. But I don't know if I would call it a permaculture course. So now that I own Great Escape Farms, and I'm doing feature presentations, I'm doing reviews, product reviews and stuff like that, I wanted to do a review on these two PDC courses, but I didn't. They were so at opposite ends of the spectrum, I felt I needed something more, and both of them were online. So I took another course, which I'll get into in just 1 minute. But as I got into permaculture, I realized that I'm really, really going to get hooked on this. I need to move forward, but plants are expensive and I need to propagate my own. So one thing led to another. The initial permaculture led to the realization that I need to learn how to propagate plants and propagate a lot of them. And then I figured, well, if I'm propagating a lot of them, let me do just a couple more and I'll make a business out of it. So that's how the nursery piece got going. The Great Escape Farms piece, I'm actually doing product reviews and everything else. So this past summer, I took another PDC, which was an in-classroom PDC from Charm City Farms. So I had two opposite ends of the spectrum, and then Charm City Farms changed those two opposite ends of the spectrum into a triangle. So, because it was way different. It also covered several of the topics in the book, but it didn't really follow along in the book. But they had a huge amount of hands-on, which I absolutely loved. So we made biochar, we foraged for wild mushrooms, we went out and we made mushroom logs, we did pruning, we did grafting, we did all kinds of different things, lots and lots of hands-on there. I don't think that Charm City Farms would have been as good for me if I had not taken the Perma Ethos PDC course. And I'd have to say the same thing about Open Permaculture. I had the bookwork and everything behind me at that point in time after I had taken Perma Ethos. But some of the folks at Charm City Farms that took the course as well, they loved the course. But when we turned in our final PDC designs, I actually had a complete PDC design. It was 27 pages long on my farm. And I got up and I presented it because we actually presented in the class there, our overall PDCs, and most people were amazed by what I put together. And to me, that's just the way that a PDC should be. So I didn't quite get that from either Open Permaculture or from Charm City Farms. I did get it from Perma Ethos, but I enjoyed the aspects of the other schools on what they had to offer. So I was just about to start writing reviews on these three PDCs, and in my email, I received a 50% off coupon for Jeff Lawton's PDC. Well, Jeff Lawton is like the ultimate PDC guru or permaculture guru, and I absolutely had to sign up for that. So I'm waiting for that one to start. That one is supposed to take us through, I think, April or May. So all this permaculture stuff that really started hitting me back in 2012. By the end of 2017, I should have 4 PDCs under my belt, which was in no means my intention to constantly go to school on it. And I absolutely want to get into more advanced topics and not stay with PDCs. But one thing led to another, and this is where I am at. So the permaculture, I absolutely loved everything I've taken so far. However, if you're really wanting to learn the book, I would recommend the Perma Ethos PDC. If you have taken that, I would recommend the Open Permaculture School. And by the way, that one, if you don't go for the certification, it's free. Everything online, all the videos with Larry Korn and everything else, it's free to attend those and look at it. If you want to get the certification, I think it's $200 or something to get the certification. Charm City Farm, that's just a local guy around here. Most cities have local guys that do it. And then Jeff Lawton's PDC, if you hurry, he hasn't started yet. I think he's still recruiting folks. He was supposed to start in October and he hasn't started yet. So you may still be able to get into that one. Okay, enough of all the PDC stuff. Let's move on to nursery stuff. So softwood cuttings. A softwood cutting is basically a cutting that you take in basically summer. Early to midsummer. It could be late summer or early fall if your environment is right. And what you do is you put, because there are leaves on it and it's soft wood, you have to keep it moist or just in the sun, even in the shade, it will dry out and die. So it requires special treatment that you don't necessarily have to do for hardwood cuttings. So shown here on this picture, I have my softwood cutting propagation bed. So I have some plumbing and I'll get into that in a minute, but it is a 4-foot by 8-foot bed. And what I have in here is kids' play sand. I found this isn't the best type of medium to use. The best type that I found to use is actually concrete sand because it's a little softer, water flows through it. With the play sand here, it just compacts a little more. It's a little more difficult to work with. So it worked for me. It's just not the best. So that little bed, how much can I actually do with that little bed? Well, for any cutting, you actually put them very, very close together. All I'm looking for is a short period of time, anywhere from 4 months to a year. And I just want to get the root started. So by 96 inches, so 8 foot, if I put them every 2 inches apart, that gives me 48 rows. And in a row, I can do about an inch spacing in one row. So let's just call it an average of 40 inches. And if I can sell those plants for $6 each, this little bed right here, if everything survived, and a lot of ifs there, you could have $11,520 of product in this one bed here. Now I'm going to get a little more into finances later because that is gross profit. Actually, that would be net there by the way that I work it, but it's not accounting for loss. It's not accounting for man hours and water. There's a number of other things that it's not accounting for here. So let's get into the plumbing a little bit. On the left-hand side, you see I have some pipes and some plumbing. On the right-hand side here, it shows it a little bit more. What I have is on the lower right-hand corner, I have a black hose that's coming into a water filter. So in my Pasadena residence, I am running on city water. So I want to filter out the chlorine or whatever they're doing to kill the bugaboos in the water here. So I have a simple filter. It's like a $20 filter from Lowe's or Home Depot that it just filters out the chlorine. Then I go into a pipe and I tee off. The tee that goes off in the upper end was planned for future expansion. I'm not using that right now. I probably will be once I move to my farm out in West Virginia. The actual flow right now is going off to the left, and I hit a sprinkler valve there that is electronically controlled. And I'll talk about the electronics in just a minute. But it comes on for 10 seconds. So it's on for 10 seconds. And it shuts off for 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, it comes on for 10 seconds. And that only happens from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. During the night, it's not going. And what it does, if you notice on the left-hand side where the arrow is, I have a mist head. That's a DRAM, D-R-A-M-M mist head. And you can buy those online. I think they run $4 or $5 each. They're not that horribly expensive. You end up paying more for shipping than the actual product itself if you buy small quantities. And it is just sending out a little spritz or a little bit of water, and it's just enough to wet the leaves. Now, what is shown here, there's one dram mist head, and that was my first year up and running. I found that one mist head, there's a couple areas that the leaves just don't get wet. So I changed it this year, and I actually ended up putting 2 mist heads. I just spaced them out so that they were overlapping, and that managed to get everything wet. And I do have a higher success rate with my plants this year. So this is the electronics. It's called the Galcon 8056-AC6S. I bought this off of Amazon. I think it was $60 or $70. And this is what programs the time coming on and coming off. So a little sidebar plug for myself here. My YouTube channel, I actually did a YouTube video showing how to program this. I have over 1,100 hits on people that have searched YouTube trying to figure out how to program this. And I have quite a few comments saying that this is the best video that they've seen on how to program this. So anyhow, end of plug for myself, but this, this controller right here can control up to 6 different valves. And I can have multiple different beds running off of one valve. So I could be running 20 or 30 beds off of this one system here. And all of the programming can be done differently. It doesn't have to be all programmed the same. So the initial investment for everything here, the filter, the dram mist heads, the Galcon, everything, probably said and done, and would be very conservative, and you probably still have a little money left over, probably about $120 for the plumbing here. Not bad at all. The concrete sand is pretty cheap. That stuff costs next to nothing. I just went to a place and had them loaded up in the back of my truck. I did use some pressure treated wood and put that in, but you could use whatever you have there. So the startup cost is really not that horribly bad here at all. So on the lower left-hand corner, this is a picture of June. And if you'll notice, actually in the upper left-hand corner, I have a scaffolding, if you will, and that's to hold the shade cloth off. One thing I don't want is sun bearing down on me. So what I used was a 75% shade cloth. 50% would be fine and probably optimum. I would have probably had better growth with a 50% shade cloth here. So the lower left-hand corner is in June, and the lower right-hand corner is same bed, same year in September. So you can see how much growth I got out of everything. And the ones that are really sticking up here, those are elderberries. Elderberries, just, you put those in and those things just take off and go. Okay, moving on to hardwood cutting. So softwood cutting is something that you take during the summer. Hardwood cutting is last year's wood that you take in the winter time. So in 2016, I took hardwood cuttings, and those cuttings came from 2015 growth. So during the spring and summer of 2015. And all it is you cut the wood and you get at least 3. I generally go with 4, what they call internodes, which is, and everywhere an internode is, that's where a leaf came out or where another branch went off. So you need at least 3 or 4 areas where the branch came off, and then you just stick it in the ground. So before you do that, let's talk about my setup here. And this picture right here, you'll actually see in a couple slides ahead where I got this, actually the start of this idea, and took it a couple steps further. But if you'll notice, everything here is fenced in. This is out in my West Virginia property, my farm, where I will be moving operations to. And this is completely fenced in because I have a huge deer problem. And if I just had a whole bunch of wood sticking in the ground, fresh, new tender growth growing on it, the deer would decimate it in one evening. And you saw just one of these beds running anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000. They can do a lot of damage in one day. So this is, each one of these is about between $225 and $250 in investment to keep deer out. So I know that there are other ways to do it with electric fence, taller fence and everything, but where this is located, I didn't have much choice. So in my future expansion plans, I will be going with an 8-foot high deer fence, but with where these are located, this was my best option at the time. So what a hardwood cutting looks like I say, you're taking it during the winter time when they are dormant. So it just looks like a bunch of sticks in the ground. So the upper right-hand side here, you'll notice it's just a bunch of sticks in the ground. Again, same things. The rows are spaced 2 inches apart, and the plants, in this case, they're about 2 inches apart because I have some larger branches here of elderberry and some larger branches of grapevines and stuff like that. And these bottom 2 pictures show different angles. So this is the same thing. So the upper right-hand corner is in, I think that is January. And the lower pictures, they were taken the same day, just different angles. But it is the same bed. Those were taken in July of this year, so over the 4th of July. So you can see how much growth I got. The majority of them rooted out. One may ask, why would you do hardwood versus softwood cuttings? So different types of plants root better at different times. So elderberry, I found you can take an elderberry and you can stick it in the ground almost any time of the year and it will take off. I haven't found almost any way to really kill those, even if you tried killing those. Just take a cutting, stick it in the ground, and it's going to root. And it doesn't even need special ground. I tried an experiment this year. I just shoved it into some potting soil and watered it once in a while. It took root. All of them did. So elderberry is very, very easy to propagate. One plant, and it's actually shown here on the hardwood cutting, the little sticks in the back, and I don't know if you can see my cursor here or not. In the left-hand side in the back, I have blueberries in the ground. So blueberries with softwood cuttings, which I take during the summer, I have about a 5% or less success ratio with softwood cuttings. The hardwood cuttings here, and you can see they're not bushy, they're not grown up that much, but there's a lot of green there. I had better than 75% success rate with my blueberries with hardwood cuttings. So blueberries do great with hardwood cuttings, not so great with softwood cuttings. Butterfly bush. Butterfly bush, I didn't think there was any way to kill those things. I thought they were like elderberry. The butterfly bush do great with softwood cuttings. But hardwood cuttings here, I tried those. They seemed like they were going to make it, but after about April or May, they leafed out a little bit and then they just died. So I lost the majority of the butterfly bushes. So butterfly bushes don't do well with hardwood cuttings, at least in my experience. So everything I'm doing, I am documenting and keeping a good track of here, and just so that I know going forward, and I will post that eventually. Actually, I've done it with softwood cuttings. I haven't done it with hardwood cuttings yet. I posted on the blog what grows well with what. So that's hardwood and softwood cuttings. So rooted cuttings, what does a rooted cutting look like? So I had, both of these are rooted cuttings, or they are cuttings that I put in the ground, softwood cuttings, in the summer of 2015. And these pictures were taken in the winter of 2016. So the one to the left is a Woodgelia bush, and the one to the right is a butterfly bush. So you can see the different root systems there. The butterfly really took off with the softwood cutting there. The Woodgelia has pretty good roots, but it could have been a little better. That's enough to get it going anyhow. So the way that I operate, and actually I should mention this, so with softwood or hardwood cuttings, I'm going to dig these up in the December to January timeframe, and I'm going to put them in a refrigerator. And that will keep them dormant so that I can ship them in the spring. So what I do is before I ship them, as shown in the lower left-hand corner here, I soak them in water for at least a half an hour. Just soak the roots in water. I make sure that they are labeled because I have several different plants here going off to a customer. And then I use a solution, and this is called a diaper polymer, however you say that. The polymer, it actually is the stuff that they put in diapers that absorbs liquid. And you'll see, so the solution itself, or the dried granules, are in the container in the back of the center photo here. I took 1/2 of the blue scoop and put it into the little white container there, and then filled the white container half full with water. And I walked away for about 10 minutes. I came back and it was just overflowing with this stuff. So, and what it does is it holds water and it will allow me to ship these and keep the roots moist. So I would have preferred, what do you call it, ground up newspaper and stuff like that, or potting soil, but those were cost prohibitive. And I couldn't find any cheap enough. So I was on the post, it might've been the regenerative agriculture post. And I said, hey, what can I do to ship this out? Somebody recommended this, and this stuff has just been awesome. So it is biodegradable, it will break down. And the way that I ship it is I lay out some saran wrap, I put the diaper polymer on the saran wrap, then I put the plants on, then I put a little bit more diaper polymer on it, I roll it up, and I seal it as best I can so it doesn't leak out. This past year, I gave a lot of special sales out to folks that I shipped off to if they would send me pictures and give me feedback on how they received it. And everybody, I had positive feedback from everybody that replied to me saying that they shipped very, very good. They were moist. I didn't have any issues with drying out. Everything shipped very well. So what I do is I just take the package as it is on the right-hand side there, all packed up, take it to the UPS store. I let them put it into the right size box and they put packaging around it and then we ship it off. Okay, moving on to training. So training is where I got training for how to propagate, how to run the business stuff, a number of different things. So, and my goal is not to teach you how to do all this. There's no way I could do it in 1 hour, but to show you or give you an idea of where to go to get the training. So the first place I started was probably 2014, maybe even 2013 with Mike McGroarty. He is well known on the internet as far as running a backyard nursery. At the time, I bought something called the Backyard Cash Machine. So I was looking for that today, or actually this past week, and it is not available anymore, but I think it is now called the Backyard Growers University. So he's trying to get a little more professional and marketing wise there. My system cost me, it's not system, it was a PDF file, cost me $75 or $80, and the Backyard Grower University is a little bit more than that. But that is an entire system. It's documents as well as a blog post and Q&A and a number of other things. And in this training that he offered, it's how to propagate plants via cuttings, licensing, as far as how to deal with state sales tax, the Department of Agriculture, make sure you properly name plants. He, along with Jack Spirko, taught me a lot about patents and trademarks, and actually got me searching and looking online about it. So a patent expires after 20 years. So a perfect example is a muscadine, which is a type of grape grown in the eastern part of the United States. Muscadines have been hybridized, and one of them that was hybridized was called ISON, I-S-O-N. And I bought some 2-3 years ago, and it said that it was patented. So I went back and I looked at when it was patented, and the patent had actually run out about 8 years ago. So that means that I can propagate it. If a plant is patented and the patent is still in effect, you cannot propagate it legally. I don't know who would catch you, but you certainly can't be a nursery and propagate it and sell it. So the ISON muscadine, you can propagate and you can sell them because the patent has run out. What I cannot do is sell it as an ISON muscadine because it is still trademarked. Trademark lasts, I think it's 75 years, might be 80 years. So the name ISON muscadine, I cannot use that. So I have to make up my own name. So it can be the same exact product, just can't have the same name because the ISON muscadine is still trademarked. So a couple other things he gets into is who you can sell to. He recommended to go into and talk to several different landscapers and local nurseries, and gives you an idea how to do it. A lot of neat ideas on how to market and get yourself out other than using online stuff. And then how to build a plant propagation box. He's big into plant propagation boxes. I can't remember if it's exactly like the way mine is. Mine more closely follows Nick Ferguson. So another place that I got a lot of training is there's something called Meetup. And if you go to meetup.com, that's meetup.com, and it comes up to the main page, you just put in something that you're looking for. So in my case, I put in permaculture or put in plant nursery or plant propagation, and it brings up a number of different things. So I went to meetup.com and I got into a bunch of different permaculture meetups. And in those, I went on different food forest tours, found other unique edible plants. The Charm City PDC, I actually found via meetup.com. I attended something called the Mid-Atlantic Permaculture Convergence, and I met a lot of really neat people there. I got a chance to give out business cards. I met an author there by the name of Michael Judd. He is the author of the book called, Edible Permaculture with, Edible Plants with a Permaculture Twist. I'm sorry, I had a little brain fart there. Got chatting with him, became acquaintances with him, and he actually invited me out to a pawpaw festival he had. And I went and I volunteered at his festival. So that's another way to meet people, is go out and volunteer and do things. And I got to meet a lot of different people there, a lot of different contacts, gave some business cards out, got to do a lot of different things. So that was really, really neat. So one of the main meetup groups I was dealing with was something called Chesapeake Permaculture Institute. And that had a lot of good stuff on it for about 2 years. And then all of a sudden I started receiving emails saying that the person that was running it wasn't going to renew it. So it got within 24 hours saying that your meetup group is going away in 24 hours. So I went ahead through the business and basically paid for it to last another 6 months. And in doing so, I ended up being the organizer of it. So now I am the organizer of, or I was, of Chesapeake Permaculture Institute. I went ahead and changed the name to Chesapeake Permaculture and Homesteading. And a lot of these people that I'm getting to know and network with, I'm actually including a lot of their stuff on my links or on the meetup group. So it's starting to build community. And as the community gets built, I'm meeting a lot of other people. And something that we'll get into later with link juice and links, the meetup group, I have a lot of stuff linked back to my website. This is just, I've probably got 1,000 different links coming from Meetup itself pointed to my webpage, and that has helped a lot with my overall SEO or search engine optimization. And we have an entire section on that later on in the presentation here. So let's move on with a little more training as far as plant propagation itself. So one of the biggest things besides microagriculture was the Permaethos plant propagation course. It covered seeds, cuttings, divisions, layering, grafting, intermittent mist system, timing tools, and disease. It covered a whole bunch of stuff. And mainly I've been dealing with the plant propagation piece itself and the intermittent mist system. And I've watched that over and over several different times. And that has helped a lot. That's taught by Nick Ferguson. It is available on permaethos.com. I highly recommend that course. It's great. I also went to Elijah Springs workshops. I have been to a couple of them. I got property tours, and I found some other unique edible plants there. Nick Ferguson gave a grafting workshop as well as a plant propagation workshop at the Elijah Springs workshop. So that was just, again, a wonderful place to have lots and lots of stuff going on. Technical training. If you go to jackspirko.com, there's 124 different podcasts out there on how to set up a website and deal with SEO and WordPress basics and keywords and email strategies. It talks about links and YouTube podcasts, all kinds of different things, and how to monetize a site. So advertising and membership programs, AdWords, ebooks, affiliate programs, there's all kinds of things out there. Now, some of it is a little outdated. Some of the actual plugins for WordPress, they are either no longer in existence or they've changed the names. But he gives you an idea of what to look for, and there's new and improved stuff out there. So if you know what you're looking for, you can just search for it. So listen to what he's saying, figure out what it is, search for what it is, and there's just lots and lots of good technical training there to give you a good start. So as he says in this one, as well as some other ones, get stuff done. So just go out, listen to some podcasts and go do it, because I don't care how much you train, you actually learn a lot more by going out and doing it. So more technical training. This book, you can get it from Amazon. It's WordPress for Absolute Beginner's Guide. Again, some of the stuff is a little outdated here as far as the plugins, but it gives you a general idea. You can find different revs of it. Jetpack is a must, and I'll talk about that a little bit more going forward. Themes in WordPress, that's basically the architecture of WordPress, your site, exactly what it's going to look like. It teaches about images and media. So most people could probably read this in a week or less, just reading a little bit here and there at night, and this will teach you how to set up a WordPress website itself. Next is whoever is hosting your website, most of them, so I am hosting on both HostGator and GoDaddy, and I'll get more into hosting in a minute, but both of them, HostGator and GoDaddy, have different ways to train on their site. So they have community blogs, Q&A areas, and videos to help you train. Another thing that really helped me a lot was woofing. So woofing is, let's see, is willing worker on permaculture farming. And there's also another one, which is organic. So it's willing worker on organic farming. That's WWOOFER. And these, you can go to a website and search around for different folks that will, you have to go there for 4 hours, or you have to be there for, you have to work for 4 hours a day. And then they provide you a place to stay and food. It usually just breakfast and dinner. A lot of times you're on your own for lunch. So I went and I did woofing twice at Elijah Springs Farm. Once I took a week's vacation during something called Swale Fest, and we'll see those in just a minute. So this particular picture that they're showing, and I don't know if you can see it on the webcast, but they had a washaway area by their parking lot. And you can see there's dots on the area that's washed away. Well, we went and we took spray paint and we dotted every, I think, 5 or 6 foot. And that's where we planted black locust. And the black locust was put in to help fix the soil as well as hold it together so it didn't have such a washaway problem. So while we were there, the reason it was called Swale Fest is we put in 3,000 foot of swale. And we put in 3 swales each. I think the shortest was under 1,000, the longest was over 1,000. So it was about 3,000 feet. And that was a very interesting experience. So I got to work with, there were 7 of us total. So I got to work with 6 other folks, got to learn to use a laser level, dealing with West Virginia rocks and getting everything set up. So that was very neat. I was fortunate enough to be there while it rained. So a swale, let me get back to that. A swale is a ditch on contour. So what it's designed to do is slow down or stop water and allow it to sink into the landscape. So it rained after we had the swales groomed, and this is one picture of it showing it's just sitting there and it's going to soak into the landscape. So the whole idea is on the downhill side, in the picture where the water is shown to the right-hand side, that's where you plant stuff, primarily trees or shrubs, something like that, and it will keep it hydrated. It will actually hydrate the entire land area here. So the picture to the left, you see the paper bags there. We didn't actually plant, but they had 5,000 trees and shrubs there. They had something called a Zello weekend. So Zello is a group that has a radio group, and it's a tie-off of the Survival Podcast. Well, they came out, there were about 20 of them, plus our 7 wolfers, and we planted into these swales as well as the hill there. And there were 5,000 plants. I'd venture a guess that we probably got over 4,000 of the plants in the ground in one weekend there with all the help. So it was really neat. What else did I learn there? So this is a tester for an electric fence. And I got to deal a good bit with electric fence there. And I got zapped a couple times while dealing with it because I wasn't using this, this tester here. But I learned how to use electric fence. And while I was out wolfing, they were using the electric fence to keep hogs in and cows in. I use it on my farm to keep deer out. So I have a food forest that I can't deal with the individual plants. I have to, it's a larger area. So I did several strings of electric fence, and I put them very close together, and I kind of weaved them back and forth and made a maze out of it. Deer don't like to be in a confined area, no less an electrified confined area. So I've had one deer in a year get into my food forest, and as soon as he got in and hit that wire, it's obvious he got out, because he tore up the string and had some issues because he got out in a hurry. So you can check out my blog post on that as far as how I set that up with dealing with deer. I also learned about water catchment. So shown here is an IBC tote, and the IBC tote, we actually pulled it out of the metal cage there, and we covered it with black plastic so it wouldn't grow algae in it, and then we put it back in the metal cage. So I've got a good bit of experience dealing with that. At my farm this past year, I bought 4 IBC totes and tied them together on the rain gutters to my garage and saved 1,200 gallons of water. Issue is, I can drain that in less than a day when I'm watering my food forest during drought, and we had a pretty bad drought in northern West Virginia. Yeah, the southern part of West Virginia flooded out, but not the northern part. So I drained that several times. So on Craigslist, love Craigslist, I found 2 1,550-gallon water barrels, great big water barrels, and I bought those for $800. I'm sorry, $400, so $200 each. And they go brand new for $800. So each one of them had a hole in it. So I went on Amazon. They have something called a polypropylene welding kit is what it is. And those jugs are made out of polypropylene. So I went on, I welded it up and repaired them. And I have $1,600 worth of water storage that I bought for $400 off Craigslist, in addition to the 4 IBC totes. So next spring, I will have 4,300 gallons of water. It's going to take a little while more for me to run out of that water. This right here, not so much as far as what I learned or anything. I just like sharing it because that was my quarters for a week while I was out there woofing. It is a chicken coop turned into a bunkhouse. They call it the HOA. And I was there by myself for 1 week. However, over the weekend when the Zello guy showed up, I had some roommates, and I'll tell you what, some guys can really snore loud. So I didn't sleep a whole lot over the weekend, but during the week, it was wonderful quarters. And this is Nick Ferguson. He's preparing for a plant propagation course that he ran. So I was actually woofing that weekend and gave him assistance. Actually, I was toting some of his stuff around. I wasn't helping that much with the mist system or anything, but just carrying it around for him. And then this it was a greenhouse that they were building. This is John Dowie and a couple folks helping him out here, and they're making greenhouses for Elijah Springs. If this looks familiar, that's because that is my deer-proof plant propagation bed. So I made some modifications. Instead of putting plastic over it, I put shade cloth over it, and I put some screening to keep the deer out, and then I put beds in, plant propagation beds with a walkway in the center. The business model. Okay, this is my business model, and this looks a little bit confusing here, so let me break it up and cover individual pieces here. So in the center, I have Great Escape Farms, and that is the parent company. Everything else is a sub off of that, or a DBA, doing business as, from this. And I did that for legal purposes, dealing with the different things that I was selling. So Great Escape Farms is dealing with just blogs, articles, book reviews, YouTubes, podcasts, and newsletters. So I have several income streams off of that. I have membership, and I have other affiliate programs, and the next slide is going to get into that. Great Escape Nursery is where I'm selling unique edible plants, and all I'm doing there is I'm selling plants. So that is Great Escape Nursery. I'm sorry, it's Great Escape Farms doing business as Great Escape Nursery. Great Escape Consulting, I have a dash line here. It's up and running, the web pages and all, but I'm really trying not to consult a whole lot. I have a lot of people coming up and asking me to consult, and I am helping some others out, and I'll cover that in a minute, but I'm really not going out and pushing that one. And then I have future ventures, so I plan on getting into bees, grapes and vineyards, and produce, and each one of those could be a separate corporation because I'm dealing with things that have different liability in different ways. So I'm need to get with the lawyer on that in the future. So income streams, membership programs. I do not have enough subscribers yet to launch a membership program. It's in the works, but once I get more subscribers, I will. As with advertising, once I get enough members, I will get into advertising. Aweber, got to build a list. This is an email list that you send out email to, as well as newsletters and stuff like that. So I do a weekly newsletter. And with the newsletter, I can announce sales at the nursery and stuff like that. YouTube, I can make money on YouTube, or you can make money on YouTube by letting them sell ads. So it's the little ad that pops up and you can hit skip after 5 seconds or whatever. If somebody watches those, you get 2 cents. Well, that may not be that big a deal, but right now I'm averaging anywhere from 200 to 500 hits on on my YouTube channel. So there are a number of people that like the ads or just listen to them or somehow, and I'm making $20 to $30 a month on YouTube right now. I've heard of people where that builds up to 1,000. Once I get enough videos, it could be there, who knows. Amazon affiliate link, you can make money by referring people, just have them go through your site. I'd love it if you go to greatescapefarms.com and go through my Amazon link, especially with Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up. But there's a lot of competition. Everybody and their brother is doing this. Church groups, volunteer groups, all kinds of people are doing this. So a lot of competition on that one. You really can't bank on that. Other affiliate programs, so I need to get with Josiah and some others. They have an affiliate program, and there's several other companies that do, so I'm looking into that. Haven't done it yet, but that's in the future. And speaking engagement, I've spoken so far at churches, PETV now, and I have 2 garden clubs in the works. And the main idea there is to get the word out about the company and get people interested in subscribing to my different ways of going. So income stream from the nursery. So I am assuming that the following are paid for by other streams. That would be the propagation beds, the propagation medium, the deer protection, and the plants to be propagated, because you put all that stuff in once and that's it. My expenses on an ongoing or a regular basis per plant is $3.01. And I break that out here exactly what it is. The individual pots, the soil, the water, the electric, and some of it is estimated. And I'm basing all of this on 500 plants. So I believe that Josiah will be posting this later. You guys can look at the details on this. My gross sales, I am selling this year for $8.95. That's gross sales. That's not taking into account the expenses. So my profit per plant is $5.94. One thing to note, this does not count a labor rate. So that to me was a little difficult to figure out. That depends on the number of plants and a lot of variables there. So I left labor rate out, but it does need to be included. So $5.94 may seem like a lot, but if you are making $5.94 a plant and you sell 1,000 plants, that's $5,000. But if it takes you 1,000 hours to do that, you're not making a very high labor rate. So all that has to be played with, and you got to look at I believe Jack calls it ARPU, average revenue per unit. That really needs to include the labor rate as well. Okay, moving on to marketing, and it looks like I'm going to overshoot my exact 1 hour here. I apologize for that. I'm speeding up a little bit, but if you guys can stay on, I'm going to continue on through this.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Todd. Keep going.
Okay, thank you, Josiah. So marketing, spread the word. So again, if I have a plant and I want to sell it, I can't just throw it out on the web. I have to have a customer base out there in some way, shape, or form. So you got to spread the word. So I do that by doing a blog post, and the blog post goes out 4 to 5 times a week. And I have it automatically set up. So whenever I do a blog post, it automatically goes to my Facebook page, goes to my Twitter page, goes to Pinterest. Actually, the Pinterest I have to do manually, and it goes to my LinkedIn page. I do a YouTube 3 times a week, and the YouTube is also tied back to Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. I have a weekly newsletter, and in that weekly newsletter, I announce all of the videos that I've done and all of the blog posts I've done, as well as what I've been up to that week and any special sales going on at the nursery or anything else. And I have a weekly podcast. Now, the weekly podcast is pretty much me just reading the blog post from the week, but I know I don't have time to hit a lot of blog posts on a regular basis. but I'm in the car a lot. I love podcasts, and I found that other people do as well. So I have a pretty high subscriber count on the podcast there. Okay, going out and meeting people. So I hooked in my permaculture design class, there was with Charm City that I took this summer, there was a guy from the Baltimore City Orchard Project. And he is a paid employee there, but he had volunteer opportunities. So I've been in helping them, and they had a tree giveaway. They invited me in to be a vendor at the event for free. So I got to go to an event and meet hundreds of people at a place where they're giving away trees, and I was selling some. They were giving away pawpaws and stuff native to the Maryland area. I had unique edible plants. I got a lot of people to sign up for my newsletter. I met a lot of people, gave a lot of business cards away, so it was a wonderful event. I also got some consulting experience from them, and I started building a portfolio. So I've already done a permaculture design outline for them, so that, because again, he was in the permaculture class where it wasn't that much of a permaculture design. Well, he liked my design so much that I did a generic one that all he has to do is fill in the blanks for his customers, and he can do a permaculture design that way. I'm also in the process of doing a water harvesting document that explains how to do it and comes up with a cost or a bill of goods for him, and setting up a propagation mist bed for him and coming up with a cost for that, and several other things. So I'm starting to build a portfolio and getting some stuff going with the overall consulting business there. So the main thing here is just spread the word, network with people, and get word out. Again, Meetup. Meetup is a wonderful place to learn about lots of stuff, but in running the Chesapeake Permaculture Meetup group, I found that there are lots of people signed up for it. Chesapeake Permaculture and Homesteading has 270 people signed up for it, I think, and we have about a dozen really, really active participants. So, but those dozen are people that I wouldn't have otherwise known, so it was worth it for me. Next, go out and do stuff and meet people. So I did an introduction to permaculture talk. It was an hour and a half long at a church back in April. I picked up a half a dozen subscribers from there. Again, gave out business cards. It's just good to get out and meet other people and see what's going on. I am currently in the process of scheduling 2 different engagements with a local garden club. They're interested in what permaculture is. So I'm going to go out and, again, I'll get a chance to give away business cards, meet new people. So the whole idea is to get out, get your name known, get your company known, and so that people follow you. And when you do have sales and stuff, when it is time to start making money in the business, you actually have an audience and a group of folks set up that you can actually do that with. Next is winter activity. So again, people have asked, well, what do you do during the winter? Aren't you bored? Actually, I am almost as busy or busier in the winter time than I am in the spring and the summer. Well, spring is pretty busy because I'm doing a lot of shipping of plants. So in the winter time, I am pruning the orchards, and I'm pruning some of the unique edible plants. And when I'm pruning them in the winter time, I am, again, putting them in the ground and making hardwood cuttings out of them. I am selling online plants. So in order to sell online plants, I need to build a customer base. I'm doing all the search engine optimization and a number of other things there. But in the winter time, I have to dig all of these plants up and put them in the refrigerator. I have to keep them moist. So there's a lot of stuff to prepare them to just have them ready to ship. I have to do all the web and marketing activities, and this is again where I'm email marketing, I'm doing SEO, I'm letting people know about sales, letting them know that the nursery is open, giving discounts out for people that purchase in, let's say, the first week of January or whatever. So a lot of different things there on the web on the backside. Product reviews, so I have several different product reviews as well as book reviews and movie reviews that I will be doing. Again, and that's to build the Great Escape Farms subscribership, which will ultimately build into Great Escape Nursery, people seeing what's going on with that. Make new propagation beds. So last year I completed one. I got 90% done with another. You can see it in the background here. And then I have 2 others in the back that I don't have doors on, I don't have sand in, so it's probably going to take a couple of weekends to complete those. And then probably add a couple of others additionally. I still have this issue that I love buying plants. Actually, last night from Stark Brothers, I just unpackaged $200 worth of plants. So I'm getting unique pawpaw trees and all kinds of other stuff in. So I do a lot of that in the winter. So as much as I'm selling and trying to get people to buy from me, I'm still buying from others. Just a habit I have. Preparing rooting cuttings for shipment. So again, I refrigerate them, and I will actually start shipping to some of the warmer areas in late February, and that will go all the way through into early summer. Geek stuff, how do you set up the IT systems? So web hosting, there's two of them. I have GoDaddy. GoDaddy hosts my Great Escape Farms and my Great Escape Nursery website. I have email for both of those sites through them, and I bought my domain names through them. HostGator, I have Great Escape Consulting through that one, and I have toddmccree.com through that, productizing the name, if you will. Again, I have email through them, and I bought the domain names through them. Mainly with me just starting out, I wanted to have a comparison, see which one was better. I have actually had a fair number of issues with GoDaddy with SEO, and I'll get in more to SEO a little bit later on. HostGator was actually doing pretty good for me, but for the most part, they're about on par cost-wise and everything else. So what does a web hosting company do for you? Basically, they have WordPress either installed or ready to go, where you just click a button and it installs it for you. Then all of this is done on their servers, so you don't have to have the hardware. It's done with their internet connectivity, so I don't have to have internet connectivity. They have folks for tech support, so if there's general server issues or network connectivity, they are working on that. I don't have to deal with it. And they also give you some limited help with your site if there's issues. So that's always good to have. They pay for all the licenses and fees for the generic software. There are some licenses and fees for premium software that you can install, but you don't have to. You can get away with all free stuff. And I simply pay them an annual fee. You can also pay them a monthly fee. I think they charge more going by the month. Subscribers through technology. So this one is going to build. Let me have a sip of water. So everything is based around WordPress. WordPress is a program where my blog post is. So I have a YouTube channel and I do videos, and you can go to YouTube and you can check it out there, but all of my YouTube videos are accessible through WordPress on my blog. So whenever I do a YouTube, there is an associated blog that goes along with it. WordPress allows people to sign up for my weekly newsletter with a plugin, and that gives them a name and an email address that goes off to Aweber, and I can manage the email lists there. And you got to be able to manage email lists if you're going to ever sell anything. Jetpack is a plugin, and it covers all the social media. So Jetpack allows me to automatically, whenever I post anything on my blog post, it sends it out to Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I don't have to do a thing. It's automatic. I have a separate blog or a separate plugin for my podcast. So when I do a podcast, and I'll get in more details into that in a minute, but it's also linked on WordPress, and it advertises, or it's pushed out through the WordPress website. I have a dotted link here to Pinterest, in that every web post I do, with Pinterest, it's posted to Pinterest, but I have to manually do that. So it's one step. I have the same issue with Stumble Upon, is I have to manually do those. It's not that difficult, but it's not automatic. I really, really like automatic stuff. So one nice thing about all of these is every single one of these builds a subscriber base. So my largest subscriber base right now is YouTube. I have about 350 subscribers on that. But with all of these other things here, I'm approaching 1,000 altogether. And these are people that have subscribed to me willingly because they want to, either via web or YouTube, whatever. And whenever I post something, they're seeing it. So it's a wonderful thing. Got to build your subscriber base. Some other plugins installed. I'm going to cover most of these in a slide going ahead. Two that I do want to cover right now is Login Lockdown. Love that one. If somebody tries to unsuccessfully log into your account for 7 tries, and this is configurable, mine is set, I think, for 7 tries, it locks them down for 5 minutes. So that prevents somebody from doing a brute force attack trying to break into your site. And Google Analytics allows you to see who's coming to your site, where they're coming from, where they're going. So a lot of information there. All the rest of them, all the rest of them I'm going to cover on another site. So my information flow. In almost all cases now, and I've been doing this since about June, I create a YouTube video. That YouTube video I transcribe and put it on WordPress as a blog. And then once a week, I take all of my WordPress blogs and I pretty much read them. I do ad-lib a little and I cover a couple of other things, but I make a podcast out of them. So I'm really recreating a whole lot of information from previous information, and the way I'm basing that is most of my subscribers aren't subscribed to me in multiple forms, they're subscribed into one. So I have folks that like YouTube and different folks that like podcasts and different folks that like email and different folks that like blog posts. So each one, I don't have a problem in a given week copying one to another. So let me talk about these 3 main things here that I get information out of. So how do I actually get it out there? What does it take? So with YouTube, I take my videos with the iPhone. I don't have a special camera or anything else. I have a Mac and I use iMovie. I also bought Final Cut Pro and I plan to move that to that later because it can do a lot of neat stuff, but you don't need it. So far, I've still been dealing with iMovie and it's great. I have loads of subscribers. I get loads of hits all the time on YouTube. So you don't have to have Final Cut Pro. Eventually, when I get trained up on it, I will move to that because it offers some features that I want. For WordPress, for doing my blog post, I do Microsoft Word. I like that because it covers a lot more grammar stuff and a couple spelling things that WordPress doesn't. And then I use the Photos app that's on the Mac. I'm sure the Microsoft operating system probably has some kind of way to deal with photos, but that's what I use. Again, all free there. Podcast is costing a little bit of money. So I create a podcast with Audacity, and once it's created, I copy the MP3 over to Libsyn, which is Lubricated Syndication, and they host the file. That's where I pay money. You can get away with $5 a month. However, I went up to $15 a month because of my subscriber rate and because of the amount of, just a number of factors, I went up to 15. From there, that goes into FeedBurner, and FeedBurner gives me additional statistics that Libsyn won't give me. And then from there, I have the podcast, which is going out to over 30 outlets, including iTunes, Google Music, Podplaster, and like I say, 30 of them total, a whole bunch more. So there's really not a whole lot of money involved here. You can get away with $5 a month on Libsyn, and you could have a YouTube, a blog post, and the podcast. Actually, the WordPress site, you do have to pay for hosting there, either HostGator, GoDaddy, or one of the other ones out there. Okay, this is what FeedBurner looks like as far as giving me some stats. So it kind of tells me how many subscribers I have. In this case, I had 113 subscribers from FeedBurner, and it tells me how much they're downloading at any given time. I do miss some subscribers from FeedBurner because some of them are pulled directly from Libsyn, Lubricated Syndication, because they couldn't pull from FeedBurner. But I don't miss a whole lot there. Next is Woopra, W-O-O-P-R-A. This is a service that monitors exactly who's on the website, what they're doing, how long they've been on there, what they've clicked. It'll tell me everything that they've been. It'll tell me how many hits I've had in a given day. It doesn't tell me who they are, but it just tells me, in some cases, I can know where they're coming from. So where they're, at least where their ISP, their internet service provider is. So in my case, Severna Park is where mine is from, even though I live in Pasadena. So when I log in, I see where I'm coming from. Can't see that it's me though. So it'll give you some idea. If somebody comes in from Google and it's encrypted, you cannot see where they're from. It's very, very limited as far as when Google encrypts something. Next is the Google Search Console, and this gives you all kinds of information. You can load up a sitemap, and a sitemap is basically an architecture of your site as far as telling the web crawler where to go, and that's how you get ranked and rated. So I have 740 submitted, and they have indexed 726. So they have indexed a lot of my stuff there, and that's just the pages. Then I also have pictures and stuff that they can also do. And last, this one does cost money, SEO Spyglass, but I like it because I can go out and I can look at my domain strength. I can look at trending issues and things going on. Next is search engine optimization. So I have a quote here, is SEO is a market discipline focused on growing visibility in organic or non-paid search engine results. And that was taken from Moz.com. So some people pay for search results on Google, and you'll notice it says next to it advertising. The ones that don't have advertising next to it, that is because they are ranked high in SEO without paying at least for advertising. You may be paying somebody for SEO. SEO is the cause for about 95% of my junk emails on my business accounts, because everybody and their brother wants to improve my SEO. Of course, they want some money for it. The more backlinks, the better. They call it link juice. And remember that, I'll talk about that when I get into a plugin down below. And the more hits or the popularity you have, the better. So that's kind of oxymoron, or it's a strange thing, because the more popular your website is, the more popular your website is. Well, yeah. So if you have an unpopular website and nobody goes to it, even if you get somehow ranked up in Google, you're going to fall. But the more people that hit your site, the higher it will get ranked. Well, the higher up in the rankings you are, the more people that hit. So it's very, very strange on how that works. It's kind of a circle. Also, the longer that people stay on a page, the better you are. So if I put out a blog post and people hit it and they're only there for 10 seconds, then I'm actually going to get dinged for that on SEO. Whereas if they stay there for 2 minutes or longer, then that improves my SEO. So I have arrows here showing the bottom ones. The WordPress SEO by Yoast, we're going to talk about that one in a minute. Smart SEO Smart Links, that is basically connecting links within my own site. Akismet, however you pronounce that, that one is effectively blocking comment spam. So if you remember I said link juice up there, a lot of people go out and they comment on other people's posts and they put a link. Well, if they link to their site, they are stealing, or they are taking your link juice. So this program prevents people from stealing your links. So it just knocks them down. So I've been up and running for a year. It has blocked over 1,700 people trying to send links or put links in my content section. Awesome there. WordPress AMP, I forget exactly what it's something about mobile, but it optimizes for mobile phones. This is highly related to SEO, and it's also most people, or a lot of people, are looking at your website on their phones. You want it to look nice. The AMP plus Yoast glue ties together the AMP so it looks nice and your SEO so that you rank higher in Google. So that's separate app there. Image optimization, this is something called, I think it's called Smush, and it actually takes your pictures and it makes them smaller so they will load faster. Load time is something that goes with the SEO. GoDaddy search engine visibility, that's something that came with GoDaddy. I'm really not sure what it does. I just leave it be and let it go on its merry way. Yoast SEO plugins. Next 3 slides are on this. I'm going to go through it kind of quick here just because I'm going a little bit longer than what I had planned. So the first thing that you get, this is a plugin, and the first thing you have is an overall stoplight. So green is good, orange is, you better take a look at it, red is, dude, you better fix something. So it has 2 pages, readability and your keyword. So my keyword is test, and I'll show you where to set all that stuff up. So the snippet preview, if you do rank in Google, or when something comes up in Google, the snippet preview shows you what it will look like, and then down below is where you configure it. So here we have test feed, and then a whole bunch of numbers, and then dash Great Escape Farms. The dash Great Escape Farms was actually added by the SEO title down underneath, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The greatescapefarms.com is always going to be there. That's my site. And then in between the slashes, I have test feed. That's called the slug, and you can control what that is. And then the description. So when you're searching for Google, you have a description. that is actually something that a person types in. So you don't want it to be the first paragraph or the first line in your blog post, because you may have an attention getter there and it may not be exactly what you want. So you can type that in. So the SEO title is generically, this is script showing that it's going to be the title and then the dash site name. Basically, that's what that's saying there. The slug, again, you set this. You want the slug or to have your keyword in it. So in this case, it does, yes, test feed. My keyword is test. The meta description here, if you run over the amount of length, it will turn red and it will cut it off. If you notice up at the top, the very bottom statement, it goes across and then it says, if you overdo it, and it stops. Down here is what I wrote. If you overdo it, and then I put bar below, and then I put ant instead of and this text will turn red. It just cuts it off. So it's letting you know that whatever you're putting is going to be cut off, and you don't want that. Okay, this is the readability page. So this one does a number of things. So it talks about transition words. It actually has a reading ease score. They recommend that you have at least 300 words here. I'm going to skip over a lot of this. So it tells you how to make something that is readable and good for SEO. And if you have a problem, if you notice there's a little eyeball there, if I click on that eyeball, it will take me up to the text and show me where something is, where a problem is, or whatever. Okay, this is my focus keyword. So this is actually a different post than the last one. This one was a post I just did this past week. It's called Harvesting Maypop Passiflora Incarnata. And it looks at a number of things. So it wants the keyword in the first paragraph. It wants my keyword to be between 0.5 and 2.5% density. What they don't want is what's called keyword stuffing, which means that somebody puts 100% of a blog post with nothing but the keyword in it, because that's just junk then. It's not really usable data. The meta description contains the focus keyword. The meta description is what we looked at before, the description that shows up in Google. A number of different things here. Again, minimum of 300 words. The title is between 25 and 43 characters. The keyword is actually in the URL. And the fact that I've never used this keyword before. So they don't want me using the same keyword multiple times over. YouTube University. I'm not going to go into detail on all these. Actually, let me just build it out here. If you notice, each one of these, I have a person's name or a website in kind of orange. So Brian Dean covers SEO concepts. Corinne version, that's where I figured out how to do the online cash register. Jordan Alexio. So just go to YouTube and search on one of these names, and that will bring up, these are some wonderful, I had a lot of resources. These are some of the best resources that I came up with on YouTube. I love YouTube for learning stuff. Fluid Depiction. So Fluid Depiction is run by Justin Parks. I found him on TSP Business Directory. So I just wanted a sanity check on my site to make sure that what I had done was correct. I hired him to look at the SEO and correct a few things, which he did, and design a logo. He did a wonderful job. So the business directory is actually located at the survivalpodcast.com/business directory, or just go to the survivalpodcast.com and click on the business directory. It is a wonderful place to find small businesses that generally you can trust. Everybody I've seen there is a small business. Most of them come out of the Survival Podcast community, and for the most part, everybody there I have liked working with, and they have been great. Laws, regulations, and accounting. Licensing. You must be licensed to sell plants. If you are going to a yard sale to sell a plant, you must be licensed. If you're going to put a plant for sale on Craigslist, you must be licensed. In theory, if you give a plant to a neighbor, even if it's free, you must be licensed. So at least those are Maryland and West Virginia laws. My guess is that's across the nation. So these are my 2 licenses, and there is a lot of variety with the licenses. So to the right, this little picture is the application for West Virginia. And you could be selling to other nurseries. You could be selling produce. There's a number of other things. So my licensing is supposed to require annual inspection. I got inspected from West Virginia, and I'll talk about that in a moment. That license was $30, is good for 1 year. People's Republic of Maryland. I didn't get inspected from them yet. The license cost was $110 for 1 year. And I need to renew it again. So another $110 out. So it varies. Obviously, it varies greatly, just 2 states I'm in. So the inspector was actually very nice. He explained the inspection process to me. He inspected out in West Virginia. He inspected my plants in about 30 seconds. So I have a couple of hundred plants there, but they're all in close proximity. All he's looking for is pests, diseases, and stuff like that. So I did a blog post article on the inspection process, and I put it out on YouTube, and I did a blog on it. I had some idiot come on YouTube and he was like, Agenda 21 alert, you like the law or whatever. No, I'm going to follow the law, because at 1,000 plants and $500 a plant, I don't want to pay that fine. So if Agenda 21 idiot, as I'm calling him, wants to pay that fine, let him go, but you got to follow the law. So I am not, by no means am I an Agenda 21 person, but I will tell you what you need to do to follow the law and kind of give you an idea of what it is. So I do have a blog post and a YouTube video out on that if you're interested. One thing that the inspector gave me was this site. It is the nationalplantboard.org. So prior to him coming out this summer, so last spring when I was shipping, I went out to other nurseries and saw where they did and didn't ship to, and I somewhat copied where they didn't, but there was conflicting stuff. So West Virginia was one of them. Some of them would not ship currants to West Virginia as a whole. Others would. So I couldn't figure that one out. Well, once I got to this page, it lists all of the states out there. Well, actually, I'm sorry, there's like 46 of the 50 states out there. It's one place where you can go and look and see what the laws are and see where you can ship and where you can't ship. One of the things I have highlighted down here in all this text is the following plants have been declared noxious weeds, and then I have highlighted autumn olive. Because it's a noxious weed in West Virginia, I cannot grow autumn olive. Even though it's growing all over the dang place, I'm not allowed to on purpose propagate it, and I'm not allowed to sell it. However, in Maryland, because I'm running an establishment there, I am allowed to sell autumn olive there. So, and it's very specific. It's autumn olive only. So there's several different Aleagnus. Autumn olive is Aleagnus umbellate. So what is it? Sweet scarlet gumi is an Aleagnus, but it's not umbellate. And what's the other one? Russian olive is an Aleagnus. I can grow those and propagate them, but I can't do autumn olive here. So whatever. Got to play with the laws that I have. So this is just a sample from West Virginia on some of the stuff that you have to look for. So circled over on the left, I have a restriction dealing with the ribes species, and you cannot grow, ship, have the ribes species in total in any of those 23 counties. Well, the one county I have highlighted is Hampshire, and that's the one I'm in. So I can't deal with ribes. Ribes are your currants and your gooseberries. So I cannot grow or sell ribes or gooseberries in West Virginia because of the county I'm in. And nobody can sell black currant because that's ribes nigrum, and that's prohibited in the entire state. But this is some of the stuff you have to deal with. So you can't ship it to 23 counties, but there's 55 counties in West Virginia. That's why a lot of nurseries just say they're not going to ship it to West Virginia because they're not going to deal with what county you're in. They're just not going to ship it because it's too big a pain in the butt. And then the noxious weeds over on the right, it shows autumn olive there as well as a bunch of other things they have. So accounting, make sure that you deal with accounting. There are a lot of tax advantages on things that you can write off, and we'll get into that in a minute, but get an accountant early on to figure out how to do things like record keeping, and mine recommended going with QuickBooks. It's actually like a checkbook, and I print off a single summary page at the end of the year, and they do all my taxes from that. So it makes it easy for record keeping for them, and it makes it cheap for me because QuickBooks does it all up front. Get a lawyer early on. So I actually had a lawyer before I got an accountant, and he helped me structure the company and become an LLC and deal with the DBA and all that stuff. Good record keeping, got to have good records. You don't want to declare anything for taxes that you don't have good records on. I write off perennial plants because to me they are nursery stock. I do not write off annual plants because of the way my business is set up. If I sold seeds, then I could write off annual plants. So it depends on what exactly you're doing. So other write-offs, I have electric fence post, and fencing. That's all dealing with the deer. I can do mulch, soil. So computer gear, anything that's related to the business, printers, ink, all that kind of stuff. So you get a lot of write-offs there. Okay, this is my final slide here. I'm sorry I went over a little bit, but my website is greatescapefarms.com and greatescapenursery.com. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at todd@greatescapefarms.com and todd@greatescapenursery.com. I do have a Twitter account, which is Great Escape Farm. I couldn't put the S in because it wouldn't allow me. And didn't have enough characters there. And I have a Facebook page at Great Escape Farms. I have a YouTube and a podcast that you can look up on iTunes. Just go to YouTube or podcast or iTunes, search for Great Escape Farms, and I should be the first hit on both of those. So, Josiah, that is it for me. Again, I apologize for going over.
That's all right. That was great information and well worth going over on. Thank you very much. We will begin the Q&A session soon. So if you are tuning in just for the presentation, there will be a separate video you can check out for free, which is the Q&A session. Go ahead and go to that now and have a great day.